What's going on, guys? Tyler Lopes here with another brief PSA. This is actually part two of a two-part podcast that Dan Lindsay and I recorded. I am speaking to you the day after everything has kind of been recorded and finalized. It ended up being roughly 2.5 hours long, our last recording session, and so I decided to break it up into two parts. And again, long story short, this is part two of that recording session. I will do my very best to link part one in the description, so that if you have not watched that first, go ahead and watch that first. It's definitely helpful kind of setting this video up. But if you have already watched part one, thank you for clicking on part two, and hopefully you enjoy part two as much as you enjoyed part one, if not more. In this video, we go over our division winners, wildcard winners, playoff, and Super Bowl winners. So a lot to cover in this video. I believe the last video should be roughly an hour long, and this one's going to probably be slightly under an hour and a half if I remember things correctly from editing everything. So again, thank you guys so very much for watching, and thank you for giving us a chance, and enjoy the video.
You want to get the divisions? Go
ready.
through we have all LI divisions. Get through them really quick.
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, let's talk AFC West. I'll toss to you for most of these, and then I'll
Sure.
come back with
Okay.
who my pick is. But who are you thinking for AFC West this year?
I mean, it's the Chiefs. It's obviously the Chiefs. Like, I'm not going to come out here and say the Denver Broncos are going to shock the world with Bo Nix and win the no. It's the Chargers aren't ready. The Broncos are rebuilding, and the Raiders are poo. So it's the Chiefs, obviously. I think I messed around and said the Chargers may win the division last year, and they were just a
They were a
treasure.
trendy pick for that. They were a trendy pick for that last year.
And I may not have. I can't remember, but I may have. But yeah, right now, it's Chiefs and nobody else. I don't think any of the.
Yep.
I honestly don't think there's another team in that division that's going to be 500, let alone win the division.
Yeah, no, wholeheartedly agree.
Other than the Chiefs, other than the Chiefs,
Yeah.
obviously,
Yeah.
not that the Chiefs aren't going to be 500 either. No other team other than the Chiefs is going to be
Right.
500.
No, I understand me. Yeah, no, I mean it's the Chiefs. Moving on.
Yeah, pretty much.
And, the only thing I'll say is I wouldn't be surprised if Denver somehow takes second in this division.
Me neither.
Just because Chargers are in flux, the Raiders stink. Yeah.
Yeah.
Chiefs, move on. So let's move on. Okay. AFC South. Who you taking in the AFC South?
I talked about them earlier a little bit. I'm going with the Houston Texans. I think the Texans are obviously the young up-and-coming team in the NFL right now. I'm an Ohio State guy. I know I talked about Boston College earlier, but let's face it, Boston College doesn't do anything ever. And so the team that I watch all the time and root for is Ohio State. I've liked them since I was a kid. C.J. Stroud succeeding in the NFL warms my heart because there was always that like crux of like, yeah, Ohio State's good, but they don't produce NFL quarterbacks. All the ones for the last 15 years have failed miserably in the NFL. All of them. And so, including Justin Fields, unfortunately now. He was the guy that I really thought would break the streak. And listen, I know it's only 1 year.
The jury's still out on Fields.
We'll see. We'll see. It's not off to a good start.
I'm gonna go off on a little Fields tangent now since we brought him up. And I hate saying this because I'm a Bears fan. All right, I hate the Bears. Not a Bears fan.
Oh my! Wow,
you're do not clip that. Do not clip that. If I see that, I will just no. Packers fan hate the Bears. It's late at night. Come on now.
I'll forgive
you.
For
that. So the Bears just rebuilt around a number one draft pick. They obviously were like, hey, we can rebuild around a quarterback. To me, it's like Fields has improved every year. He gives you a great running dynamic that not a lot of quarterbacks can. To me, it's like, why you have Keenan Allen there. I think the Bears could have been better served at hanging on to Fields, taking Marvin Harrison Jr. to play alongside DJ Moore and Keenan Allen. Rome Odunze isn't necessarily a huge downgrade from Marvin Harrison, but Harrison was pretty unanimously the number one receiver in the draft this year. So you take him more, and Keenan Allen, like you know you can still do what you did, but you kept Fields, who's used to that. I think the front office, I think, was just ready to give up on him. I think he will. I think he has potential to still do well in Pittsburgh under someone like Tomlin if he can actually get the starting job, which I think he'll have by like week 7, maybe week 8. Um, so I think, to me, the jury is still out on Fields. I think he's a lot better than people give him credit for, and I hate saying that because I'm not a Bears fan.
Yeah, for sure.
I do not like them, but I always felt like, and I'm like, we in the Green Bay's always had horrible problems with quarterbacks that can run. We don't do that QB spy thing very well, not at all. We never have. Colin Kaepernick, so many of them. Um, so I was like, I always was dreading the Bears facing Fields, and we somehow still, always pull up the win. But I just, yeah. So that's my little Fields tangent. But to your point of Ohio State quarterbacks getting back to the AFC South, I mean, yeah, Stroud had a great coming out party last year. Probably, broke that stigma for Ohio State.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm with you there on that.
Yeah, and I know it's only 1 year, so you never know what can happen. I mean, look at what happened with Joe Burrow. I mean, he first 2 years in the NFL, he was, Broadway Joe and just slinging everything and going crazy, and he's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL last 2 years. Not a whole lot's happened, so it's just you never know what can happen. But right now, man, it looks like they're gonna have one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL for a very, very, very long time.
Yes.
And they got better this offseason at both sides of the ball. They obviously they got Danielle Hunter, who's one of the best pass rushers, certainly one of the most underrated players in the NFL. Nobody talks about Danielle Hunter and how good he is, but he's fantastic. You're a Packers fan, Minnesota, he's been over there his whole career. He's probably been tormenting you guys for the last 7 or 8 or however long he's been in the NFL years. And now he's in Houston. They obviously also traded for Joe Mixon, so they have now a bell cow running back that runs it out for 1,000 yards every year in his sleep. And he also ran for 1,000 yards when he literally had an offensive line, again, that did this. So, pretty good. They have a good offensive line. And they traded for Stephon Diggs. So now they have 3 really good wide receivers out there. And you can say whatever you want about Stephon Diggs. Is he the best number 1 in the NFL? Absolutely not. Is he even the number 1 on the Texans?
Exactly.
Maybe
he's not
not.
the number 1 on the Texans.
But he's fantastic. He's a good wide receiver. And obviously he is an upgrade over Mac Hollins, which I think is the guy that was over there previously. So, or whoever it was.
Well,
right?
it's Tank Dell. Nico and Tank.
Nico Collins is really good. Tank Dell is really good. Stephon Diggs is really good, and Dalton Schultz. I mean, he's their tight end. Yeah. So you've got a lot of weapons. Your defense is much, much better. It's just one of those things where you got to sit there and think. I understand that Jacksonville has pieces. I understand that Jacksonville is. It's not going to be a runaway. It's not going to be like the Texans win 15 games and the Jags win 7, and it's not going to be a chasm between the two. But I do think the Texans. I trust C.J. Stroud more than I trust Trevor Lawrence at this point, man. I know it sucks to say, but it's just the way it is. And now, by the way, C.J. Stroud's on a rookie contract, which the rookie contracts for quarterbacks are not tiny. But, $12 million, $13 million a year, whatever it is a lot better than paying Trevor Lawrence $50. Yeah. So,
well, but you know what, Trevor, speaking of Trevor, I'm taking Jacksonville.
Fair enough.
I think everybody's high on Jacksonville. You're too early. I obviously put my chips in on Trevor Lawrence MVP. I think they get together. I think he stays healthy. We saw how promising they can be. Another year under Doug Peterson, I think the team's going to be really good. I think finally rise to the cream of the cream of that crop this year. I think having a team like Houston to push them to be like, whoa, we have some competition. Mm-hmm. The Colts are a fun little wild card team, I feel. To play spoiler when people aren't expecting them to. If Richardson's healthy all year, I think that division to me is a lot more competitive than it has the last couple of years. And I think Jacksonville's like, whoa, we need to take care of our division. And if they take care of their division, they win 4 of their 6 division games. I think they're an 11-12 win team. Texans are right there behind them. I think it's like a game difference, or heck, even the same record, but they win division tiebreaker because they're
Sure.
like 4-2. Texas went 3-3 or whatever in the division. I think it'll be very close. Wouldn't be shocked by the Texans winning, but I'm pulling Jacksonville there.
Fair enough. All right. I mean, hey, I think the Jags are going to be good this year as well. I'm just really high on the Texans. I just love what they're doing over there. And again, I'm rooting for C.J. Stroud like crazy. So I love watching that kid play. I love watching him at Ohio State. I love watching him in Houston. And the only thing that I will say, I do agree with you, is that the Texans won't surprise anybody anymore.
Right.
They're here. Everybody knows they're here, and everybody's going to go after them. And it's not to say that by the end of the year, people weren't, like, they were still laughing at the Texans when, like, you're playing them in Week 15 and they're, 11-4, and you're like, oh, it's the Texans, these guys suck. Not clear that they don't, obviously.
Yeah.
But I think especially, at the beginning, rookie quarterback doesn't have a whole lot of proven weapons, doesn't have a great offensive line. How's the defense going to do?
Yep.
Well, they all were amazing. And DeMeco Ryans, again, I don't know how that man did not win Coach of the Year, but that's just that. Again, we'll save that for another day. But I think that Jacksonville very well could win this division. I don't think it was going to be 15-2 and 7-9 or 7-10. Like, I think it's more going to be 11-6 and 9-8. Like, I don't think it's gonna. I think it's gonna be 1 or 2 games of a difference between them.
Yep. All right, I think we're gonna probably be in agreement here. How about the AFC North? You taking the AFC North?
I am going with the Baltimore Ravens. I like the Cleveland Browns. I like the Bengals. Obviously, I've talked about Joe Burrow winning MVP. So, but it's one of those things where the Ravens, they were the number 1 seed last year, and they got better. They got Derrick Henry, so they have an even better running back combo than they did last year. It's funny, their running back combo is actually both out in out with the Chargers. Now, out in LA. But now you got Derrick Henry. And yeah, yes, I understand he's 31 or 32 or whatever he is, but he's still Derrick Henry until he's not. Like, he has not given me any, like, visually any reason for me to think that he is going to stink this year. Other than just what's on paper he's 31, he might stink. Like, that's about all I can say about it.
Yeah.
You went ahead, you got rid of Hollywood Brown. So you're really relying on some other guys on offense that are going to step up, but their defense got better. You basically gained a Pro Bowler in Justin Madubuike this year. That he just got paid. I think that they're going to be a better team than they were last year on paper. And obviously, you got the MVP, the reigning MVP in Lamar Jackson. Another year to get better. Another year to hopefully grow in the kind of player he's going to be. Listen, we all kind of wanted Lamar Jackson to be the guy that's going to go out there and throw for 4,500 yards and 38 touchdowns and 6 picks. Guys, let's face it. He's not ever going to be that. He's going to throw for 3,700, maybe 4,000 yards on a really unbelievably good year. He's going to run like crazy. He's only going to throw for 22, 26 touchdowns, probably throw 13 to 18 picks. But he's going to run for like 800 to 1,100 yards every year, run for another 12 or 13 touchdowns. That's the guy he is. And so you know what you're going to get at quarterback. You got a better running back. You got a great offensive line. You got a fantastic defense that also added Nate Wiggins, excuse me. I'm thinking T. Higgins for some reason. Nate Wiggins from Clemson, who in the preseason, dude, oh my goodness, that guy's an animal. So he is an absolute dog. So look, I think it's going to be so close. I truly think it's going to be one of those things where it's like 13-4 and 12-5, or both teams are like you said with the Texans and the Jags. Bengals and Ravens are going to be the same record, or Bengals are going to lose one more game, and the Ravens are going to take the division. It's going to be so close, and both teams are going to be excellent. But I'm giving it to the Ravens.
Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, they do it for me. I'm taking the Bengals here.
I like it. Listen, hey, I don't hate that at all.
Lamar Jackson is a glorified running back. He's a running back that can throw. We knew that when he was in Louisville, and we knew that when he came to Baltimore. To me, he wasn't even the best quarterback last year. And I'm just going to leave it at that. I think there are quarterbacks that could have been a little bit of consideration Nobody talks. Everybody likes to poo-poo on Dallas and Dak Prescott.
Dak Prescott was way better than Lamar last year.
Exactly. And who won the MVP?
Yeah, Lamar
Because
Jackson.
he's a glorified running
ran.
back.
Yeah, he ran for 1 billion yards. Yeah.
Then why didn't CMC get in it? That's what I'm. That's what I'm saying.
He didn't throw for 3,000 yards. I don't know. Listen, I agree with you.
That's what I'm saying. Though.
CMC should have won.
If you're going to give the MVP award to a quarterback, it should have been Dak because Dak was a better actual quarterback.
Yeah.
Lamar Jackson's a glorified running back. Who's he throwing to this year in Baltimore? Joe Burrow's back. That's Cincinnati's division by 2 games.
I like it. Yeah. No, I don't hate it at all. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Bengals go out there and win the division. But it's hard for me. The Ravens haven't regressed a ton, and they were the number 1 seed last year. It's hard for me to pick against them right now.
It's hard to keep that number 1 status though.
I agree. I completely agree. Again, I think if the Bengals do everything that I think that they're going to do this year, certainly they could win the division. Certainly, 100%.
How about your Patriots division? Who are you taking in the AFC East?
AFC East. I'm going with the Buffalo Bills. And this is it's a tough call, honestly, because I think this is one of those divisions where you're going to have 3 reasonably mediocre teams, and then you have the Patriots, who are just atrocious. I don't think you're going to have even an 11-win team come out of this division. I think that the most you're going to have is 10 wins, and I think that the Bills are going to edge them out. I love Josh Allen. I think that he is going to just will that, just like last year, man. I mean, he just kind of willed that team to a division title. They're going to get bounced in the first round of the playoffs. They're not going to be very good. The Dolphins lost a ton of talent this year on defense. Their defense is going to be so bad this year.
Mike McDaniel doesn't care, though.
No, he doesn't. Their offense is
That's my pick. My pick is Miami. 9 wins wins the division. I think the Bills regress. I think the Bills have had their window the last 2 years. They couldn't capitalize on stuff. Josh Allen, I think, is going to take a step back. I'll take Lamar Jackson over Josh Allen. Honestly, I think Lamar Jackson is just a little bit better of an athlete. I think putting what you said earlier upon Josh Allen is just too much because he keeps doing it year after year after year. Doesn't get recognized for it. I think Miami finally figures out on offense. Their defense is good enough. Yes, they lost some people, but so it's actually interesting. We were like similar in one of these divisions in the AFC, but yeah, I'm leaning Dolphins for the AFC East.
All right,
and I have some other thoughts on the Bills. I'll spill a little bit later, but I don't want to spoil something.
Fair enough. All right, I think that's all of them. So NFC now.
Yeah, NFC West. I'd be shocked if we disagreed on this one.
Yeah, 49ers. I don't see any reason to pick against them. Obvious reasons. They have the best offense and best defense in the division. That's all I have to say. They haven't gotten any worse.
3 letters. CMC.
Yep. Exactly.
I just it's the West Division. I think are
do you
easiest
see
to pick
do you see the Rams giving them any kind of run in that division at all, or because that's a playoff team, so it's not like everybody else is terrible.
Last year, no, I think the Rams are knocking on the door of a playoff team again this year, like they were last year. They get Kupp and Puka Nacua probably for majority of the season this year. I think Puka's only going to be out for like a week or 2. He might even be ready for week 1 in some capacity, as the last I heard. But I could have. I thought he was going to be out longer, but I think he might be back. I might be back a lot sooner than people expect, which that can make that an offensive juggernaut that can go toe to toe offensively with them. But I think Aaron Donald's going to really hurt them. Seattle's not going to do anything in that division. I wouldn't be surprised if Arizona's competing for the number 2 spot in that division. Honestly, Arizona. I know that's a leap, but
I mean, I'd say it's the least likely. So yeah, it's a leap, but I like it.
This year. You have Kyler with Trey McBride and now Marvin Harrison Jr. You're a Ohio State guy.
Sure am.
Who should have gone to Chicago or Patriots, in my opinion, in the draft. I went all over that in our draft video.
Yeah.
Endlessly. But he landed in Arizona. And I think that's just going to Kyler's going to just be like, does Call of Duty come out this fall at all? Is there any Call of Duty releases?
I have no idea.
If there's no Call of Duty releases, Arizona's number two in that team, number two team in that division.
I was wondering where you go with that. That makes a lot of sense.
I'm pretty. There's like some kind of weird coincidence that some people try to make a correlation that Call of Duty releases as don't count on Kyler Murray at all when that for a couple weeks around the release of that.
Fantastic. Oh goodness.
So yeah, easy one here. Watch out for Arizona. NFC South. I think this might be one of the more difficult ones to pick. Who you got in the NFC South?
Yeah, this definitely was a tough one. It is a two team race. I think the toughest for me was the AFC North, because truly, as much as I can't stand the Steelers, and I think that they are such big frauds, it's not even funny. Somehow they find themselves in the playoffs every year, no matter how bad they are. So, like, I can't just sit here and say, oh, yeah, they're definitely going to win 4 games, because they just somehow always win games. Last year...
I don't think Tomlin has a below 500 record at all in his coaching career.
Never once. So, like, last year, they became the first team in NFL history to win, I think it was 5 games where they were outgained in yardage. And they were 5-3, and they were outgained in all 8 games. So, like, they were winning a majority of their games where they were actually not playing as well as the other team. It made no sense. Like, they just figure out ways to win games somehow.
And they have not had good quarterbacks last year.
No, and that's a quality. That is a testament to the coaching staff and how well they prepare their guys, and how much Mike Tomlin knows what the heck he's doing. For sure, that's a division, if you consider all that into play, which you shouldn't, but they somehow make it work. Truly, all 4 teams have a shot to make the playoffs, or win that division. Truly, all 4 of them. So I think that was the toughest one for me. But this one was probably the second toughest, if not the NFC North. Was tough for me as well. But I'm going. As much as I think the safer pick is the Bucs, I'm going with the Falcons. I like
the trendy pick, huh?
I like the story. I like the idea. Look, if it was like Dak Prescott goes over there, or something like that, I may go against it. But Kirk Cousins is just a solid, calm, like, consistent. You know exactly what you're gonna get. He very rarely varies from year to year. It feels like every year he's within the same 300 yards and 5 touchdowns and 3 picks of every year. You know exactly what you're going to get. And I think Atlanta actually could use... Now, that might not be true, by the way. He could just be completely varied. But it feels like it to me, that he's just a more consistent guy. You know what you're going to get kind of thing. Obviously, barring injuries. I know he had injuries last year. But for me, I think that he can kind of just settle everything down and just say, hey, guys, we got this. We're a good team. They have improved their defense over the last 2 years enough to where they can get by. And in that division, 9 wins probably wins your division. If not, maybe 10. Because the Bucs are pretty good. So maybe 10 wins you the division. I'm not going out here saying the Falcons are going to go out there and be 13-4. Or 14-3, or even 12-5. I think that they're going to win 10 games. They're going to win slightly more games than they're going to lose, and they're going to win that division. Because they've got weapons at every spot on offense. Elite weapons at every spot on offense.
Bijan was very underutilized last year. I think Drake London has a lot of potential. Kyle Pitts. Everybody's been talking about his potential for years.
Absolutely. And by the way, their number 2 wide receiver is money with 2 O's, man. I love me some Darnell Mooney. That guy is a stud. I hope that he breaks out in that offense, because that guy has been underrated out there in Chicago for years.
New coach, new coordinator, right? I believe.
Yep, new coach, new coordinator.
So I think,
and I believe, unless I'm out of my mind, Are they the ones that hired the guy from Washington who had the quarterback who had like 5 different 1,000-yard receivers in one season? Like, it was like ridiculous. They didn't have 5; they had 3, I think. The offensive coordinator for University of Washington, and then obviously they drafted Penix. So I think that's what ended up happening. I'm not sure. Maybe it wasn't the Falcons that hired him. I'm thinking somebody hired him. I can't remember. But regardless, I do think that they're going to step up just enough. They're going to look. The Falcons won, I think, 7 games last year with the roster that they have, and they got better. They added some pieces on defense. They added a couple on offense.
Offense should be better just by changing out the coach and offensive coordinator.
And the quarterback.
Not use Bijan correctly.
That too, and the fact that they have a reasonably competent quarterback that's not going to throw a billion interceptions or fumble the ball many times. I'm not
Ryder just or Ritter.
I'm not saying that they're going to move the wind, the sun, and the stars. They're going to win 3 more games than they won last year.
Yeah.
In a bad division, a really bad division, by the way.
Yes. Might be the worst.
And it might be. And the Bucs didn't really get better this year.
Right.
So I think they stayed pretty much the same. So 9-8, 10-7. I think the Falcons can do it. I think they can pull it off. Now, again, barring injury. It's always about injury, right? Kirk Cousins could blow out his Achilles again. And then you're stuck. Well, I guess now you're not stuck with Michael Penix. That'd actually probably be pretty good. But it just depends. You never know with injuries. But I like it.
I do like the fact that they have the Michael Penix right now. I think that's it. I kind of look at that as the Jordan Love, Aaron Rodgers program that we just don't see first round quarterbacks drafted and sat for a couple years. I think that's the exact idea what they're doing.
Yeah.
It seemed weird because it was a top 10 pick, not usually like top 50 or top 20, which that's when it usually happens.
Yep.
But I mean, if you like a guy, you like a guy. Minnesota got a really good defensive end because Atlanta didn't take him. Like Dallas Turner. I think everyone was like, "Oh yeah, Dallas Turner." That was like, I think that was like one of the surest picks everybody thought in the draft. And
that was the one. I think I even said it in our video. I said if the Falcons take anybody other than Dallas Turner, if this is how the board shakes out, I'm gonna lose my mind. And the night that they picked Michael Penix, oh boy, did I lose my mind. As did all of America. Like it just made.
I get it though. Being the team, seeing the team and doing that twice, going from generational to generational quarterback 3 times now. It works. It's weird again because it's a top 10 pick, but I don't know. So hopefully he gets a couple years to actually set. And what a great guy, like you said, for him to sit behind and Cousins. I mean, Cousins is a very upstanding guy. Very very even keel, which you need with a young team.
Absolutely.
I think Atlanta is a trendy pick. I think I think they're going to look fun early. I think they fade. I think Tampa will do enough. This is a weird division. I'm taking Tampa here.
Sure.
And Atlanta just fades right at the worst time when they need to step up and to win the division. But I think Tampa fades. Now again, that's another division like the AFC East. 9 wins the division. Good luck to anybody else.
Yeah.
Saints and Panthers compete for the worst team in the league. Sorry, Derek Carr.
Yeah, for sure. And listen, it's one of the two, right? I mean, it's Bucs or it's Falcons, so I certainly don't I don't disagree with that even. I mean, I could certainly see it, and if anything, I feel like I'm, at least in my opinion, I'm picking the worst of the 2 teams to win the division because I do think the Falcons are not as good as the Bucs, but in an effort to try to maybe be a little bit different, I want to go with the Falcons here. It could bite me in the butt. Obviously, the Falcons have not really been super dependable in the entire existence of their franchise.
But potential is definitely there. I can definitely see the potential being there.
Yeah, man. I mean, if it all works, they've got the pieces. Like, it's not like, it's not like, Jared Goff stepping into Detroit at first, where everybody was like, yeah, Jared Goff's going to, help us, and he's going to be better than Stafford. And, right away, he was terrible. And then they went, oh, right, he actually needs help. He needs a running back and some wide receivers and some linemen and maybe anything to help him.
And a
And
premier
then
defensive end.
and maybe a good defense, and maybe a coaching staff that knows what they're doing. Maybe just Jared Goff by himself's not going to win you some games. And then guess what?
Yeah.
They got him a bunch of help, and now he's awesome.
Yep.
So
and now
it's
Cousins going to a team where they needed a quarterback to help their help.
yeah, and they have again elite.
And now you're gonna make me pick. Now you're gonna make me pick the Falcons.
No. I'm not trying to convince you. Nope. I'm gonna stop here. But I just try to be a little bit different. I figured you'd pick the Bucks because it makes the most sense. It's the sensible pick. So I wanted to go against the grain.
Yeah. Well, I didn't go sensible in the AFC, so this is one of my.
No,
teams.
you went perfectly sensible in the AFC. Don't say that.
All right, my division.
Your division. I love you, buddy. I'm sorry, but I got to go with the Lions here. I not only do I think the Lions are going to win the division, I think the Lions are going to be the best team in the NFC. They have a fantastic team. Now, look, their disadvantage is they have a really, really, really good division. They are going to have to win some tough games all year long. But you know what? Gosh darn it, if anybody's going to do it.
They have the team to do it.
It is that psycho Dan Campbell's squad of absolute animals that he's assembled out there, man. They are so fun to watch. Go ahead.
No, they are. I actually agree with you. I am not going to.
Wow. Oh, my goodness, Dan. Are you okay?
Yes, I am okay. I am okay. I think I honestly feel like Green Bay is going to start out well and then struggle, but, still finish fine. But they're, again, like you said, like Detroit, Chicago, Green Bay, I feel you could make an argument for all three of those teams to win this division.
Oh, sure.
I think all three have a legitimate shot.
Chicago less so, but yes.
Right. I would be shocked to see Chicago pull it off, but Chicago has a team that could pull it off.
There's a universe where that happens. Absolutely.
Yeah. Not in this one. Please no.
Please not in this one.
Please,
if Caleb Williams goes out there in his first season, he wins 14 games, I'd be like, oh my God, what have we done?
Yeah. So I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if Green Bay's leading the division after like the first 6-7 weeks. But I think the type of coach that Campbell is, like, he's going to keep that team fighting, and they might do better fighting through the second half of the year. To where I want Green Bay to win. I want to win the division. I wouldn't be obviously don't think. I think they do have a great shot to win the division. I think a game separates all three of these teams. It's gonna be like, 12 wins, 11 wins, 10 wins, or something like that, or 12-10-10, or 11-10-10, or what have you.
Yeah.
I think that's a very possibility for whoever wins the division. But no, Detroit was so close last year.
Yep.
I mean, and Green Bay was too, but Green Bay just had some nice, fortunate matchups go their way. But I mean, yeah, I thought Detroit had all the chances in the world to win that game against San Fran.
Detroit, I think they blew the biggest lead in NFC Championship history, I think, to lose. Wow. I'm pretty sure. I might be wrong about that, but they blew a huge lead. Whatever it was a huge lead. And yeah, they should have. Honestly, I think if the Lions went to the Super Bowl instead of the Niners, man, I think they win that sucker. I really do. Because I think that they were a way worse matchup for the Chiefs, because the biggest weakness of the Lions last year was their secondary. The one team that could not hurt you secondary-wise last year in the playoffs was pretty much the Chiefs. They had no good wide receivers outside of Rashee Rice. But, I mean, Travis Kelce's not a receiver. He's a tight end. But, like, you didn't have that. Like, I think the Lions would have done it. I truly do. Now, granted, they may not have
been cheering for them if the Lions would have made it. Honestly.
Yeah, they may not have. Obviously, with Patrick Mahomes, if you give him the ball last possession of the game, you're losing. That's how it goes. But it's, I think the Lions had what a good shot they would have had. And Jared Goff, I know the Lions have never been to that big a spot ever in their history. Jared Goff has. He's been to the Super Bowl. Yeah, he lost.
People forget that.
He lost.
People forget that he led the Rams to Super Bowl, lost, and then got shut out of there in favor of Stafford, whom he replaced. They replaced each other, and then Stafford actually got the win there. But people forget that Goff can get it done.
Goff
He
was
is
good enough. Yep.
yeah,
And now he's a better quarterback than he was then by leaps and bounds.
yeah. He's
Yeah.
grown. That team's grown around him. I mean, that it couldn't be. You couldn't ask for a better coach for a team like that, honestly. And in a division like that where you have to grit every single game, it's like all these division managers. The only team that I'm not worried about in that division is Minnesota, but at the same time, they're not going to be easy out either, just because they're like they want to prove themselves in this division too. I feel, it's like, again, Sam Darnold.
Yeah, and I mentioned, by the way, another reasoning for Lions picking the Lions here. Excuse me. So their biggest weakness was their secondary. Well, their first two draft picks were Terry Arnold and Ennis Rakestraw. So there's your two starting DBs now.
Yep.
Like, you're good. You got probably, I don't know if you got the number 1 DB in the draft.
You got two really good DBs.
Really good, yeah. Ennis Rakestraw was a bit behind that first. He was kind of the first guy in that second tier in the draft for DBs. Like, you got two fantastic players with that. So, for me, you fixed your biggest weakness. You don't have a big weakness now.
In a division where every team has 2, if not 3, hard matchups at receiver.
Yeah,
they took care of that problem just within the division, and potential other problems between San Fran or Kansas City, even
for sure. And for me, I mean, that's another team that didn't quite use the elite running back talent that they had at its full disposal. I don't think Jahmyr Gibbs had as good a year as he could have. I mean, he was pretty much the number 2 running back all year behind Montgomery, yeah. I kept thinking Devin Singletary.
Well, I mean, the team went into the division, or went into the season last year being like, okay, Montgomery's our guy. Then he got hurt, and then I think Gibbs just fit into that offense a lot better.
Absolutely. And then when Montgomery came back, they went, actually, how about you not be the guy that perfectly fits us like a glove, and you just be on the bench now? And it's just
but I mean, it was a good tandem, and I mean, I think they can be a really good tandem this year.
Absolutely. And I hope that Gibbs is kind of the 1, and Montgomery is the 2.
I think that's the way it's going to be, but I mean, it might be situational, might be matchup dependent. Where you might feed a guy like Montgomery a little bit more if you just got to run out the clock against. You got to you want to keep the position of the ball.
Sure.
But I think two top running backs. I mean, Green Bay's shown it. Tennessee kind of showed it last year, and other teams have shown it. Like, you can have good playmakers, and then you have 2 solid, reliable running backs. It's like,
oh yeah,
when you have plenty of options, that just makes it harder on defenses.
For sure. And again, I think the Lions are going to be the number 1 seed in the NFC.
Gotcha. All right, interesting. It'll be close, I think, but
I agree. It'll be very close.
All right, last division, NFC East.
NFC East. Oh boy, what a disaster. I mean, to me, it's Eagles and everybody else. I think that the Eagles, they got better, and the rest of the division didn't. Well, the Commanders got better, but the Commanders were poo. So, I mean, you're coming up from poo. So, like, you're not going from a 3-win or 4-win team to a 11 or 12 in 1 year. You're just not. At least, I don't think so. I mean, they're trading their young wide receivers to division rivals. Like, that's where the Commanders are at right now. It's just one of those things where, again, the Eagles got better. The Eagles did what they could in free agency and with the draft to supplement what they had. And also, again, Jahan Dotson, as a number 3 guy out there in Philly, like, that guy, he's a deep threat. He's a good player. He just didn't really fit in that Washington system. Mm-hmm. And so, it's one of those things where I think that it could really, really work out for them. You obviously got better on both sides of the ball. You, another team that their biggest weakness was their secondary. You saw it all the second half last year. Their secondary just basically crumbled into dust. Okay, how about let's just go draft Cooper DeJean, who is one of the best defensive backs. My number 1 defensive back in the draft, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
And oh my gosh, who's the other guy that they drafted? They drafted him in the first round, a defensive back. I'm blanking on his name. His last name is Mitchell.
Boy. Let me see if I can look
Kenyon
up.
Mitchell. There it is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There you
Yeah,
go.
Kenyon Mitchell, right? Like you got. I'm sorry about that, folks. It's after 10 o'clock here. It's getting late. My brain's not working. Kenyon Mitchell, right? Like that. You got, in my opinion, the number 1 and number 2 defensive back in the draft. I mean, unbelievable.
Yep.
Like that they were able to pull that off without. I think they only moved up like a little bit to get Cooper DeJean. Like I think they traded up like 5 picks to get Cooper DeJean in the second round. Like who cares? Like
Yep.
that's great.
Stole from Green Bay.
That is true. They did.
Possibly.
Well, I mean, you had the 25th pick. You could have taken him there. But
Yeah.
you took a backup lineman. Apparently, that's what you told me earlier. He said he was going to be a backup.
That's where he's shuffled to right now at this point. Yeah. But go back to Philly. Yeah, I'm with you here. Philly's back on top. They're my number 1 seed in the NFC.
Okay, I like it.
I think they come charging back. From. It'll be weird not seeing Jason Kelce out there on that offensive line, but I think they'll be fine. I actually, we'll get into the playoffs, the wild cards here in a minute, but
Yep.
I'm taking Eagles there. They're my number 1 team.
Okay. Hey, that's not a bad choice for sure. I think there's certainly a world where that happens. They really fell off the wagon last year. If something like that happens again, they'll be nowhere near the number 1 seed. But I still think that they're going to win the division with how much the Cowboys lost and how they basically refused to replace guys at this point this year. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, no, that's so much turmoil in Dallas.
Oh, by the way, I also forgot about Saquon Barkley too. Upgrading from DeAndre Swift, who, by the way, was good last year. He's a good running back, to arguably the second best running back in the NFL outside of Christian McCaffrey. I mean, Saquon Barkley is an animal. So, now there's an argument. He probably isn't the number 2, but people will argue it, and I will happily listen to the argument. And I might be convinced, depending on what your argument is. So he's really good. That's the point. So, a bell cow running back. I argued last year, not this past draft, but the draft before, like, they took Jalen Carter, which was a great pick. I argued that they should have taken Bijan Robinson if he was there. Because basically, really, the only thing that they needed at that point was just luxury items. And why not take Bijan Robinson, a generationally good running back? Why not? Just go for it. Just run for 3,000 yards as a team. Go ahead. Just go crazy. And they did not, but they got Saquon. So, they did it a
couple
year
years
after.
later, Saquon. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to the AFC wild cards. Before we actually pick our wild cards, very quickly here, so we still have a lot to go through. Very quickly here, what team in the AFC do you see not making the playoffs? But I mean, it's kind of like that honorable mention of maybe making the playoffs.
Yeah. So I think that there's a lot of teams that are right on that fringe that are going to be easy to talk about. Right, like obviously any of those teams that we talked about in the AFC North, right? Maybe the Bengals don't end up making it because a bunch of teams win 11 games, or maybe the Ravens don't make it, or maybe the Browns don't make it, or teams that we know are going to be good, and it just depends on how the division shakes up. To me, aren't that interesting to talk about here. So I'm actually going to go with a team that no one is talking about even making the playoffs this year, that I think could surprise a lot of people, and that is the Indianapolis Colts. I am not super high on the Colts. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, and in their division, it's going to be difficult because the Texans, to me, are going to win the division. To you, the Jaguars are going to win the division. So right there, that's 2 really good teams that are in your division. So you're going to have to not only beat out, you either have to win your division against those 2 teams, which that's probably not going to happen. But if that's the case, then you're going to have at least one team that's most likely going to take one of those wild card spots. So you got to battle 3 other divisions for 2 wild card spots, and one of those divisions has the Bengals, Ravens, Steelers, and Browns. 3 of those teams made the playoffs last year, and one of them is probably going to come back and make the playoffs this year because their quarterback's coming back. It's going to be tough sledding for the Colts. But I like what they've done in the last couple of off seasons, AR-15 looked very dynamic and very fun to watch before he ended up getting hurt. So who knows how good Adonai Mitchell becomes in his rookie season, and can he make that offense more dynamic than it was with just Michael Pittman last year? Does Jonathan Taylor kind of continue to shake off the rust from not playing for most of training camp and some of the season last year? You know, what happens? Because you got a great...
Anthony Richardson, yep.
Yep, you got a great running back. Obviously, like I mentioned, AR-15 hopefully will take a big step forward and stay healthy this year. You got Michael Pittman, Adonai Mitchell out there now. Your defense continues to be very steady and be right around that 10 to 15 range of defenses in the NFL pretty much every year. So I think they could make a run for it if things swing their way. I don't know if they necessarily will, but I like the Colts. I like the direction they're going in, so I wanted to give them a mention. Again, just because it's easy to talk about, like, oh, I don't think the Browns are going to make the playoffs this year, but they're going to win 11 games. Like, it's just kind of, it's one of those things, it's not as fun to talk about. So I want to talk about a little bit of a lower tier team at this point.
Yeah, no, you're fine. The team that I wouldn't be surprised to make the playoffs, but I don't think they will here. It's with my line of thinking. I went with, the Dolphins as winning the AFC East. Again, I feel we both think, at least two teams are coming out of the NFC North or AFC North or AFC South or both. Those are two strong divisions that can boast a lot. I don't think the Bills are actually going to make it. That's what kind of put here is like the team that probably will make it, should make it, could play, will play spoiler and probably wreak havoc, but just miss out in the playoffs. I just, you have a lot of unknowns in that offense. It's Josh Allen and everybody else, and I think that finally catches up to him. Again, mostly just because the AFC South and North are so strong. They're right there. Again, I will probably whiff on this. The Bills will probably make the playoffs with like 12 wins after I say this, after they hear me. But I think it's the East is going to be won by 9 games, with a 9-win team. So I think they're, if they get to 8 or 9 wins, I think they just miss out. And I think it's a virtue of tiebreakers. I believe if not the last 2 years, definitely last year, where it's like there are so many tiebreaker scenarios in like the last 3 weeks of the season for the AFC wildcards spots. Like all but like 3 teams are in contention, within by the last 3 weeks of the season or whatever, last month, whatever it was. It was a super tight race. So I think this will be the same this year. I think the Bills are just missing out of the playoffs this year. But I think they'll be there, that spoiler team. Who fits that bill for you in the NFC?
In the NFC, I think I'd have to go with the Chicago Bears. I know we talked about them a little bit earlier. They're a team I don't see it happening this year for them. I don't see them making the playoffs, but they're in a division where you've got 2 teams that are young, up and coming, exciting, that are supposed to make the playoffs, and man, the Packers and the Lions are not going to want to go to Soldier Field and play the Bears, especially late in the season, in November, in December, when it gets ridiculous.
Well, Green Bay won't matter to Green Bay, but yeah.
Fair enough. But it's even worse at Lambeau for that, obviously. But it's just like, as Caleb Williams plays, the hope is he gets better, and the hope is he gains more confidence, gets into more of a rhythm, he gains more trust from his receivers. The Bears are going to be, hopefully, better in November and December than they are in September and October. And so you're going to probably get the best version of the Bears late in the season. Playoff teams are not going to want to play the Bears at that point because they do have quite a bit of talent out there in Chicago where they can upset some teams, especially at home. So I like the Bears in this spot. They're in a division where they can really do some damage. I mean, the way I look at it, right? I'm not saying that this is how it's going to play out. I'm not saying that it's a guaranteed loss for either of these teams. I haven't looked at the schedule. But if both the Lions and the Packers are 12-4, and one of them's got a home game against the Commanders in Week 18, and the other one's got to go into Soldier Field in Week 18, I think whoever's playing the Bears is going to take that big fat L that last week of the year. I mean, honestly. Like, You better hope that whatever your team, if it's the Packers, you better hope that you guys don't play the Bears after the Lions play them down the stretch. In my opinion. Now, again, I'm not saying it's a guaranteed loss. Of course it's not, especially for the Packers, because y'all don't give a rip about it being cold. Y'all eat the cold for breakfast. So it doesn't matter. But especially like Lions wise, like, oh man, I would, if I'm the Lions, the last place I want to go on December 12th or November 31st is Soldier Field. Like, I just do not want to go there at that point. So
no. I had two teams I was really trying to decide between here. I have a wild thing.
Okay.
For the last spot of the AFC, for the last spot of the NFC wild card,
Okay.
I'm looking at it like 3 teams are gonna have like 9 wins, and it's gonna come down to some crazy tiebreakers. I think 2 of those teams are gonna be the Rams and Bears.
Yeah.
And I feel like both deserve spots in the playoffs. They have the talent for the playoffs. Just not quite there this year. Just the way some other things are going to fall, in my opinion. But yeah, no, I definitely objectively have to give Chicago their due. You know, it's like they built around, you know, this potential as much as everybody likes to talk about the potential being ripe for Green Bay. It's just as ripe for Chicago, or you know, close to. Again, they have all you know, we haven't seen what they can do, but it's like the potential is just oozing right there, and good mix of youth and vets there.
Absolutely.
You know, I think Keenan's going to be great for someone like Rome Odunze. You know, and I mean, you know, again, you mentioned Cole Kmet, who I think is probably an underrated tight end.
Sure is.
And he's going to kind of be there. It's like, hey, I'm actually open because everybody else with the ball. Cool, 7 yards, second down.
Yeah, and they signed I forget his name, not the Packers, the Chargers tight end from last year too. He's over there in Chicago as well. I can't remember his name.
Gotcha.
But
oh,
he's their backup tight end. So like, I mean, that's a
Gerald Everett.
Yes, Gerald Everett. Thank you. I knew it started with a G. Couldn't think of it. It's late, guys. I'm sorry. I'm trying my best here. I'm doing this.
I'm surprised I came up with that.
That was good. I'm proud of that pull right there because I wasn't coming up with it. But yeah, Gerald Everett's their backup tight end. So like, you got 2 good tight ends out there too. They're not world beaters or anything. They're not elite tight ends.
You can offer a lot of different looks with the way that offense goes.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean,
you
your
never
wide
can
receiver
count on
core,
Chicago defense.
Your wide receiver core alone, Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, Rome Odunze. I mean, wow, like that's a great wide receiver. You know, that if Keenan Allen goes down, which is unfortunately likely,
we won't see him after week 7.
Yeah. I mean, you still got 2 great wide receivers you can just throw out there, right? So, yeah, Chicago's gonna be tough.
Yeah, them and the
Certainly
Rams.
Certainly the Rams too.
Yeah. All right, let's get into our AFC wildcard picks here.
All right.
Do you want to work? How do you actually? We didn't talk about this. How do you want to work this? You want to give your top wild card and just work down number 1 through 3, or do you want?
Yeah, I think it'd probably work better to go 1 through 3, and then the other person does the 1 through 3 because obviously, you know, if we do back and forth, some of the explanation may get lost, some of the reasoning may get lost in it. So I think it's better to go 1 through 3. Since I kind of did the whole of the divisions, if you'd like to go first on this, you're more than welcome.
Oh, sure. Yeah, and I'll make mine quick.
No, don't make it quick, dude. Talk for an hour. I don't care.
Oh, let's fly through some of these so we can get to the meat of the playoffs.
Fair enough.
My first playoff team will be the Texans. First wildcard team will be the Texans. I think that's an easy one. My second wildcard team will be the Ravens. So, like we were talking about, the AFC North, AFC South, tough divisions, should be really good division battles there. So I think the Texans and Ravens are right there. 10+ wins for each team, most likely. You know, Texans 1, Ravens 2. My number 3, and you beat me to mentioning this team, is the Indianapolis Colts.
I'm sorry.
Number 3. No, that's fine. That's fine. I think it's to me, it's like there's always some teams that are always going to be in the playoffs, Chiefs, etc.
Yeah.
But there's always going to be 1 or 2 of those teams that I'm like, where do they come from? I have 1 in each conference this year, and the 1 in the AFC is the Colts. Richardson, Taylor, Mitchell, and Pittman. I mean, I think that's a lot of lot of interesting things you can do with a team like that. You know, if Richardson can show a little bit of running powers, running capabilities. I think he can. Him and Taylor could have, could be a very interesting combo in that backfield, I believe. So yeah, Colts are my slide in number 3 right there
I
for
like it.
my wild card teams.
I like it. I mean, obviously, I talked about the Colts already. I think that they could certainly be up in that conversation. So that's awesome pick, man. That's really cool. All right.
Yeah, I think the Browns and the Steelers fall back. I think the Browns are just, obviously the Flacco magic last year. I don't think you're getting that back again.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I yeah, there's not much I really have to say about the Browns. Good. Um, I 10, repeating 9 or 10 wins this year, I think is going to be really tough with Burrow back in Cincinnati. And I think this might be the year that Tomlin finally gets a sub 500 win total.
Okay.
So I think a lot of that opens up the opportunity, makes the opportunity easier for a team like the Colts to jump in.
Fair enough. Okay. Well, my AFC wildcards. Number 1 is the Bengals. I had the Ravens winning the division. But this is not a normal wild card team. This is a wild card team because it's just unfortunate. Because I think the Bengals are going to go 12-5, and I think they're still going to be a wild card. I think the Ravens are going to go 13-4, or 12-5, and they'll win the tiebreaker for whatever reason. Strike the schedule, points per game, whatever it is, whatever the thing is that they calculate.
They have a lot. They have a lot.
Yeah. So I think the Bengals are going to be unbelievably good, like good enough for Joe Burrow to win MVP, and it makes a ton of sense, even though they're a wild card team. And for me, I think that the number 5 seed will have a better record than the number 2 seed in the AFC. Like I think the Bengals will have a better record than any of the other division winners in the NFL. So that's where I'm at with that. My number 2 is a team that really we haven't talked about much, and it's the New York Jets. I have the Jets making the playoffs this year, and here is my reasoning, okay? We haven't talked about them a lot. We write off the Jets every year, and it makes sense that we write off the Jets every year because they're just so write-offable every year. I mean, they just underperform, and they choke when it matters most. I get that. But you know it. I know it. The world knows it. That is a roster, a full constructed roster that is ready to make the playoffs. And it has been for the last 3 seasons. They drafted Zach Wilson at number 2 because they knew in 2 to 3 years, this roster with Robert Saleh kind of running the defense and kind of getting everybody in line, that they would have a top 5 defense in the NFL. And if they could just get some weapons and shore up their offensive line and get a good quarterback, then they would make the playoffs. They probably would start winning the division because the Patriots are going to fall off. And here we go. Last year, they had a top 5 defense in the NFL. Last year, they had one of the best wide receivers in the NFL in Garrett Wilson. This year, they also signed Mike Williams as a good number 2. Now, obviously, he needs to stay healthy for it to work, but
we won't see him after week 4.
Fair enough. But, that's on paper, that's still an upgrade as to what they had. They have one of the best young, if not the very best, young running backs in the NFL in Breece Hall. Their major flaws have been offensive line and quarterback. Last year, their quarterback was supposed to be Aaron Rodgers, but it ended up being Zach Wilson. We all know how bad Zach Wilson is. He's so bad that he took a team that should have made the playoffs and a roster that should have made the playoffs and was built to go to the playoffs and had them win 5 games. Just atrocious. He's so bad at quarterback. And offensive line. All they did was draft Olu Fashanu in the first round of the draft this year. In my opinion, the best offensive lineman in the entire draft. And signed Tyron Smith, who's one of the best left tackles in the NFL. So you fixed your offensive line problem. Oh, and by the way, you replaced Zach Wilson with one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever walk planet Earth in Aaron Rodgers. I understand he's 40. I understand he's coming off a torn Achilles. But he's still Aaron Rodgers. I would take Aaron Rodgers' non-moving skeleton over Zach Wilson at quarterback. So, for me, barring another year of complete catastrophe, of just complete heartbreak, and Brees Hall tears his ACL, and 3 offensive linemen get hurt, and Garrett Wilson, breaks his ankle and is out for 8 weeks, and Aaron Rodgers takes such a big step back that he stinks
injuries,
so bad.
Injuries. Yeah. That's what we've been saying half these teams.
Yeah, exactly. So, barring all of that, I don't see how this team doesn't make the playoffs, and I also could see them winning the division. Because I don't like the division. I don't like the AFC East. I don't really like any of the teams in the AFC East, quite frankly. I think the Jets could very easily win this division if things go well and they stay healthy for them. Their roster's built for it. Their defense is certainly built for it. So I'm going to go with the Jets at number 2. And my number 3 wild card is the Cleveland Browns. Yes, that's right, Dan. I don't even have the Dolphins making the playoffs. That's how much I don't like the Dolphins this year. Their offense is going to be great. I get that. But they lost everyone outside of Javon Holland on defense. Yes, they're getting Jalen Phillips back from injury. That's great. But they lost a ton on defense. Their defense is not good. And with their offense being such, quick scoring offense, their defense is going to be tired, man. Their defense is going to be out there a lot. And so for me, are they going to win 8 games? Probably. But they're not going to make the playoffs. So I have the Browns sneaking in. Now, I get it. Deshaun Watson is nowhere near the quarterback he used to be. Oh boy, does he stink. But their roster is great. Deshaun Watson doesn't even really need to be good. He just needs to be not terrible. Joe Flacco took this team to the playoffs. Come on. Are we going to really sit here and try to pretend, Joe Flacco is such a good... No, he isn't. He hasn't been a good quarterback since 2011. He hasn't. Stop. Anybody who's making that argument that Joe Flacco came in and he's just such a better quarterback than Deshaun Watson, he's not. Okay? So, no. Anyway, Deshaun Watson just doesn't need to be terrible. And they're going to probably make the playoffs. Because, honestly, that roster is stacked. I mean, they're the same position as the Jets. Same position as the Jets. Their defense is great. Their offensive line's great. They have a great running back. Tandem now, obviously, with Nick Chubb being hurt. I forget the name of the kid that stepped up last year, but he did great. They have 2 fantastic wide receivers in Amari Cooper and Jerry Jeudy now, and David Njoku's one of the best tight ends in football. They just have a roster that's built to make the playoffs. They're going to make it. They're going to squeak in. 9 wins, but they're going to make it. So, yeah, I have 3 teams in the AFC North making it. Ravens, Bengals, Browns.
Gotcha. All right, let's move on to the NFC. Quickly through mine. Putting Green Bay, number one wild card spot there.
Makes sense.
Then I don't think we get a wild card winner out of the NFC West or a wild card winner out of the NFC South. My third wild card slot is going to the Washington Commanders.
Oh my!
Yes,
big Jaden Daniels bump right there.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir.
I'm so excited to see what Jaden Daniels does. I liked him. I just LSU's been cranking out some quarterbacks and elite players for the last 3 years. I think Jaden Daniels is definitely the next in line there for them. Terry McLaurin added a second running back to go behind Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler there. Mm-hmm. I think you're going to scrape in some wins. To me, it's just going to be a virtue to some random weird NFC tiebreaker. Like I said, I wouldn't be surprised that the final wild card spot could go to the Rams. Not surprised. Could go to the Bears. Not surprised. But it's like there's always that one or 2 teams in the playoffs that just weren't there last year that get it. They put the right pieces together, get out at the right time. I think the Commanders are that team. 9 wins. They're in virtue of the 15th tiebreaker between 3 teams.
15th tiebreaker. God, I hope there's not that many tiebreakers.
There's, I think, at least 7 different tiebreakers, depending on how many teams are tied.
That does make sense, I guess.
So, quickly, who are your 3 NFC wild cards? Quickly here.
Yeah, absolutely. I am actually looking something up real quick, trying to figure out.
And
Who are the
honestly,
Rams at?
it was hard even putting the Cowboys in here because for me, just it's you lost
Yeah.
Pollard. You have a good offensive line. I think Dak's a good quarterback. Turnover prone though. You do have a great defensive jackknife and Marco Parsons, but so I mean that's I think an easy playoff team. It's that last spot in both conferences I think that are tough. And five teams might be competing for that last spot in the last 3 weeks of the season for the NFC. But I felt I needed a different team there. Commanders being that team.
Fair enough. I mean, hey, I think that would be a lot more fun than what I'm gonna have. That's for sure. So I agree with you. I have the Packers at number one. In the wild card, I think that's another team that might win 12 games or 11 games and make that wild card. Something that doesn't happen very often. I wonder if there has ever been a year where
Yes, there has.
both teams had won 12 games in the wild card.
Oh, I don't know about 12, but I mean we have definitely had multiple where like
11s, yeah.
division winner were like 8 or 9 wins, and
Sure.
a wild card spot's been like 10, 11 wins. I don't know
Yeah.
about 2-12,
Yeah,
but
that's what I'm
yeah,
saying. Like, both conferences had a wild card team that won 12 games. I wonder if that's ever
that'd be
happened before.
wild.
That would be what, but
Wild.
it could happen. That's how awesome the NFL is this year, honestly.
Yeah.
So yeah, Packers are my number one. My number two is the Rams. Yes, they lost Aaron Donald. That's a huge loss. You just cannot replace that. I mean, it's impossible. They drafted Jared Verse from Florida State this year. Not to replace him, but to be an edge rusher, and I think that kind of Byron Young and all those other young pieces that are on the line are going to help step up and partially fill that void. You never can fill that void, but obviously I think they're going to be fine. Their defense probably will take a slight step back, I'm sure, but we'll see what happens. But I think the emergence of Puka Nacua and the return of Cooper Kupp is going to help them a ton, and I think they are going to sneak into the playoffs with 9 wins. And my third NFC team is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I don't like it. I don't like it any more than you do. I don't want to pick the Bucs, but I went down the list, and I really liked your argument with the Commanders. Now, I kind of wish now that I would have said Commanders because I'd really like to see that.
I know I'm going to swing a miss on that one.
Well, you know what? But that's the point. You went up there and you swung the bat, man. Sometimes you hit a home run, sometimes you strike out. That's how it goes, man. But I liked that. I wish that I had done that. But I just kind of went up and down the NFC, and I got to be honest. Well, by the way, do the math. The Cowboys didn't make the playoffs. So there you go.
Yep.
And neither did yours, I don't think, unless I'm tripping.
No, there's second wild card.
Oh, they are? Okay. Well, for mine, Cowboys, guess what? You didn't make the playoffs, and I'm going to get into the Cowboys here in a second, but yeah, I think the Bucs sneak in. I mean, sneak in, like 8-9, and they somehow still make a wild card run. Like I don't love the NFC. I think it is unbelievably top heavy. Is the NFC now that the Cowboys are kind of out? They were really, the Cowboys and Eagles were the teams that were like, oh, they both might win 13 games.
Yeah.
And, whoever, one of them is going to be the 1 seed, and the other one's going to be the 5 seed with 13 wins, and they have to play the Bucs that, won 8 games, and they're just going to go kill them. Like, that's not fun. But although the Bucs beat the Eagles in that exact same scenario last year, so I guess it didn't really matter. But regardless, I want to talk about the Cowboys for just a second here. I think seriously a 30 for 30 needs to be done on the Cowboys. And I know that they've been done on the Cowboys, like for certain things, like Michael Irvin or whatever. But like, I truly think that there needs to be a documentary on how royally bad Jerry Jones has screwed up this franchise over the last 5 years. I mean, not only did you have a quarterback that was on a young rookie contract that was a Pro Bowler for you multiple times, you had a quarterback that was a 4th round draft pick making like $750,000 a year or $2 million a year, whatever it was. You could surround that guy with all the talent in the world, and you play for the Cowboys, which means a lot of people are going to want to play for you, like it or not. People are going to want to go play for Dallas because they're America's team and they're always on prime time and everybody talks about them and yada, 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 right? Makes me want to throw up, but it's the truth. It's the same thing with, like, the Knicks or something. Like, the Knicks, come on. Like, now they're good. Now they're fun. But, like, 10 years ago, people I want to go play for the Knicks. They haven't won 30 games in 10 years. Like, come on. Why? Why do you want to go play for a poverty franchise? Anyway. And yet, Jerry Jones has basically decided to not pay anybody.
Well, you just paid CD.
Oh, cool. That you paid one guy. Great. If Dak walks, then that means that out of all the amazing, beautiful talent that they had over the last 5 years, they paid one guy to stay. They didn't pay anybody else. They let everybody else walk, or they traded him away, or whatever it is. And it's an absolute amazing feat that Jerry Jones has accomplished. That he has gone from I think they won 12 games last year, 13 games last year, to they won't make the playoffs because literally the only reason is because he had a bunch of guys that were free agents that he didn't trade, he didn't re-sign, he just said, I don't feel like it. I'm not going to do anything. And then just let them go. Wouldn't re-sign them, wouldn't try to get them to come back on a discounted deal, nothing. He just said, bye, see ya. Michael Gallup, bye. Like, whoever it is, right? Like, just see you, bye. Doesn't matter. Get out. Don't want you. Don't need you. Running backs? Who needs them? Ezekiel Elliott and 32-year-old Dalvin Cook. Come on down. Let's go. Yeah, you're going to be our bell cows this year. Hey, like, it's sad. And no, they're not making the playoffs. Dak Prescott leaves in free agency. The Cowboys burn into rubble, and I laugh all the live long day. That's what happens.
I'll laugh too, and I love it. I love it.
Ugh, hate the Cowboys.
Do you want to switch back over to the AFC? Talk our championship game.
Let's go, man. I love it.
All right. What's your matchup for the AFC Championship?
Matchup for the AFC Championship will be the Kansas City Chiefs and the Houston Texans. I think the Texans take such a huge leap this year that they move on to the AFC Championship game. Hard to pick against Patrick Mahomes, of course, making it to that level. Look, love Lamar Jackson, love the Ravens team, love the Bengals. The Jets, obviously, with their unbelievable defense, in my world, obviously, they made the playoffs. They're going to be a threat, for sure, but it's just hard to pick against Patrick Mahomes in these spots at this point. They won the Super Bowl last year when everybody wrote them off because he had literally no weapons, and the weapons he had brick for hands. Like, just, I don't know a scenario at this point where the Chiefs aren't really good in the playoffs. If they were going to be really bad in the playoffs, it would have been last year, and they won the Super Bowl. At this point, I don't see any reason to pick against the Chiefs making it that far. And then, obviously, like I said, the Texans, they're young, they're fun, they're dynamic, they have weapons at all, I'd say 6 levels of their team. Obviously, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and then all 3 levels of your defense. Love it.
I'm with you on half of this matchup. I think you're halfway right. I think Houston does make it. I think Houston makes it.
Oh yeah.
I think I'm hoping the way my matchups work out that Houston actually beats Kansas City sooner than AFC Championship.
Oh, that'd be great.
I have Houston over Cincinnati.
Mm-hmm.
Houston and Cincinnati for my AFC Championship. I just three-peating. Has it ever been done in the NFL? In New England, never
Going
did it, right?
to 3 straight Super Bowls.
No, winning 3 straight.
Winning 3 straight Super Bowls.
I don't think anybody's done it since like Pittsburgh, but I don't even think Pittsburgh
did the Niners do it?
No, they won 3 with Montana, but I don't think they won 3 in a row.
Okay, did the Steelers do it?
That's the only team I'm blanking on right now at the moment, but I don't think
I know the Bills lost 4 Super Bowls in a row.
Yeah, Bills and Vikings have both lost 4. Bills definitely did 4 in a row.
I don't think the Cowboys did it. I think they won 2 in a row.
Yeah, I don't know if we've ever had. I don't think we've ever had a 3-peat. That's where I'm going. That's if I'm wrong. I'll have to look. I should have looked up obviously beforehand, but I don't think we've had a 3-peat. We've had definitely had a bunch of back-to-back champions, but 3-peating is hard.
Sure
I
is.
think Mahomes and Kelsey are going to probably put up video games numbers this year.
Yep.
But I think they're just going to run into Houston. I think Houston, being a wild card team, losing up to Jacksonville is going to just feed that fire with them.
I like it.
I, but I have Houston and Cincinnati in my
I
AFC
love it.
Championship.
I love it. Okay.
NFC Championship, who you got?
Well, it is a rematch. 49ers, Detroit Lions. I just don't see anybody in the NFC competing with those two teams in the playoffs. They both have elite defenses and elite offenses. It is obviously I think the Packers could make a run, and no, I'm not just saying that because you're here. I think the Packers could certainly do it. I think that they also have a pretty good defense and a pretty good offense. But the difference is I said elite for one, and I said pretty good for the other.
Yep.
So it's one of those where I just think that the talent in San Francisco is going to carry them, and then the Lions will be avenged, and they will make it to the Super Bowl.
I wouldn't be surprised at all if that's the NFC Championship matchup. Wouldn't surprise me one bit if that's who the teams are, or I wouldn't be surprised if it's Detroit versus X team or San Fran versus X team. I think, but I'm going completely different. I think the way my teams kind of stack up, I think Green Bay gets the revenge around sooner, and I think um, actually I'm looking at some of my notes here. Did I do that right? I'm actually making sure I went through my matchups right to where the seeding works out. Um, sorry, I'm gonna go again half. I'm gonna go half and half here with you. Green Bay makes it instead of San Fran, but Detroit makes it to the NFC Championship. So
Green Bay and Detroit NFC
Green Bay,
Championship.
Detroit NFC Championship.
Oh,
And
that's
because
awesome.
Green Bay couldn't win the division, they're like, we're taking the NFC Championship. We'll take that bet. We'll take that. We are finally gonna
Okay.
get over that NFC Championship hump. I think Green Bay does it.
All right.
Yeah. Sorry, I had for some reason I had in my notes Green Bay over Philly in the NFC Championship. But I think the way I have it written out, it should actually be Green Bay and Detroit. So
Yeah.
Green Bay, Detroit, Green Bay moving on to Super Bowl 59, I believe, right?
I think so.
Okay, good. I think I put the. I looked at the Roman numerals quick, and I'm like, wait, I think I forgot them. So I'm like, I think that's right. So, who's your Super Bowl champion?
Well, I don't know if I made this clear previously with the Chiefs Texans. I did have the Chiefs beating the Texans. So the Chiefs move on to the Super Bowl here. So that means it is Kansas City Chiefs versus the Detroit Lions in the Super Bowl, and everybody in America is going to be rooting for the Detroit Lions. I can tell you that right now. Well, except for all the Swifties, they'll be rooting for the Chiefs. But outside of that, which there's a lot of them, there's a lot of them. There's way too many in my opinion, but there's a lot of them. Everybody in America is going to be rooting for the Lions. That's exactly why I have them losing. Because there's just something about the GOAT quarterbacks. Your Peyton Mannings, your Tom Brady's, your Joe Montana's, your Patrick Mahomes, that when everybody's rooting against you, when everybody counts you out, when nobody wants you to win, nobody thinks you're going to win, nobody's three-peated, nobody's this, nobody's that, they turn their hair blonde, they scream, they go Super Saiyan, and they become unstoppable. And I said earlier, right? I said I think the Lions would have beat the Chiefs last year in the Super Bowl, and I meant it. But the Chiefs are better this year. And there is no way you can tell anybody, no matter how, I mean, unless the Chiefs are just completely annihilatingly bad. Like, don't even win their division, barely scrape into the playoffs as a wild card team bad, right? There's no way you can tell me, oh, the Chiefs are done. They're not going to win the Super Bowl, because we all said that last year.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we all said. And then they turned it on in the playoffs, and he turned into Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and all. Oh, Travis Kelce hasn't caught a ball in 4 games. Oh, he's washed up. Oh, look, he had 4 100-yard games in the playoffs. Like, it doesn't matter. The Chiefs are going to win, and we're all going to drink our milk, and they're going to force feed us Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce making out at the halftime show or whatever, and we're all going to like it. That's how it's going to go, unfortunately. Listen, every bone in my body wants me to pick the Lions. I want the Lions to win a Super Bowl so bad because that franchise has just been through enough. Gosh darn it. They've been through enough. Give them this one. Patrick Mahomes says no. Chiefs win. I don't want it, but that's what I'm going with.
First ever three-peat. I'm almost positive that'd be the first time if they pull that off.
I think so.
I'm going. I can't pick against my Packers in the playoffs. I can't. The big reason that I haven't mentioned about them is I am super excited for our defense this year. I feel like we finally have a defensive coordinator that understands how to game plan, understands how to be aggressive, understands what it takes, even though he came from college ranks. But I feel like from everything I'm hearing about from practices or training camp and stuff, lead up to preseason, like he's going after our offense. It's like, and it's almost like, and LaFleur is encouraging it. Like he's like, my DC is challenging me. Good.
Yep.
That makes my offense sharper than if my DC is challenging my offense already.
Yep.
I think he's working with Jair really well. We picked up Xavier, and it's just, I think the tools are there a lot sooner than I think realists probably realize for Green Bay.
Sure.
I don't think that window is going to be very wide. For whatever reason, we can put teams together, but whatever we have a Super Bowl chance, they don't. The window appears longer than it usually actually is for whatever reason. And if we're following the whole the quarterback succession, I mean, this is technically our year. And if you're following the NFL script, like you should be, there's green in the logo. So, I mean, it means Philly or Green Bay is making the Super Bowl. So, all those reasons add up to Green Bay being the Super Bowl champion this year.
Oh, I love it. I didn't think about that.
The last few things I've definitely thrown out.
Right.
No, it's more on the defense, and I think Love just excels. I honestly would pick Love for my MVP, but I'm like, I can't pick Green Bay as having the coach of the year and the MVP and Super Bowl champion. So,
I mean, you can. That's certainly.
I can.
Look, I love it. I think that love. I think. Like I said, I think that the Packers have a shot. They have a shot. Now, my only thing is with the Packers, right? There's something that happens with most, I'm not going to say all, most Super Bowl teams. I think really the only ones that I can think of that don't have it were the Patriots. But even the Patriots had Gronk. Like, it's not like it's they're completely without elite weapons. You do not have, as of yet, as of right here as we sit here, this could change week 1. You could find somebody could have 18 catches for 319 yards, and we all go, okay, yep, that's their number 1. You do not have a guy that Jordan Love is just going to throw the ball to, and they're probably 99% chance they're going to be open. And even if they're not open, they're going to make an incredibly tough catch on third down to move the chains, and it's just that guy. That Justin Jefferson, that Jamar Chase, that Travis Kelce, that Amon-Ra St. Brown, that whomever it is, you don't have that guy yet. Now, you could have it by week 1, week 2, week 3, I don't know. Could be Reed, could be Watson, could be Wicks, could be Dubs, could be whoever, right? But right now, the fact that you don't have that guy yet scares me a bit in the playoffs. Because if some of your young guys continue to struggle or the moment's a little too big for them, and you got to, maybe you can get away with it against the Bucks or the Rams or the whoever, it's going to be tough to get over that against the Niners, who you got to basically play perfect football to beat. Or the Lions, who literally the Niners had to play perfect football to beat last year in the NFC Championship game. I don't think you have to play perfect football to beat the Chiefs, but they just basically force you to not play perfect football. Like they do just enough to where like you're winning for most of the game, but you're only up by 6 with 2 minutes left, and they have the ball, and you're like, dang it, this is the one thing I didn't want is this right here, and now we lose. Like it's tough. But no, I like the Packers a lot, man. I think you guys should be very happy with how your team's gonna perform this year. I have no hope.
I'm sorry.
None at all. But look, it's okay. I'm paying my penance for 20 years of success and winning Super Bowls and playoff victories and confetti and free agents and trades and just beautiful stuff and records and just awesome stuff. And now no one wants to play here. I mean, it is a complete 180 that we deserve. And it's okay. I'm okay. Now look, if it lasts for 7 years where we're still like 2-15 every year, I'm gonna be like, okay.
Changing your quarterback every 3 years.
Yeah, I'd be like, okay, that's
never an elite receiver option. Yeah,
like, that's
understandable.
Like we're
understandable.
I think we paid enough. This is horrible. But look, I think the Packers are gonna do really well. Like I said, I think they're probably gonna win 11, 12 games this year. In my mind, if you guys win 12 games and you make the wild card, somebody please fact check me. I don't think there has ever been a time in NFL history that 2 wild card teams, one in each conference, had 12 wins. I don't think that's ever happened. I know in 2008 there was some crazy good teams because the Patriots were 10-6 and didn't make the playoffs.
Yeah.
So, like, I know that there was a lot of really good teams that year. So, maybe then, but outside of that, I can't come up with a year. So, but yeah, dude, I'm excited for the year. I'm excited to watch some football again. That's not Florida State. I'm not excited to not watch that, but no. And this is a long one, man. Thank you for kind of gutting this out. I know it's late, but thank you, and thank you guys. You guys will probably already see this at this point. I'm probably gonna split this into 2 videos because this is a girthy one. So we're gonna probably split this into 2 different videos. I'll let y'all know when both come out. I'll post it on my community tab here. So keep an eye out for that. But other than that, Dan, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you all so very much for watching, and we will both see you all next time.